The night sky burned above Earth, bright with the fire of falling stars. But these were not shooting stars. They were pieces of Earth's final defense, torn apart in silence. From the command station high above the planet, red warning lights. Flashed alarms echoed through steel walls, and officers shouted into dead radios. The Zarvan swarm had broken through Mars' last defense line. Now nothing stood between them and Earth. People across the planet stared at the sky, not knowing the danger that was coming, while those in charge could only watch helplessly. On a distant moon base near Neptune, away from the chaos, a man named Jace Harlan sat alone, eyes fixed on the old screen showing the destruction. He didn't speak. He didn't move. The light of dying satellites reflected in his eyes. Jace had once been a legend commander of First Contact, a hero of war, a man trusted to speak for all of Earth. But that was long ago, before he disappeared, before the betrayal, before he broke every rule to save an alien girl the others wanted, dead. No one remembered her name, but he remembered her face, silver skin, violet eyes, small and afraid as fire rained down on her city. He had carried her through the flames, wrapped her in his coat, and vanished before his own people could stop him. After that, he was no longer a hero. He was a ghost, forgotten, buried. Now, as the stars trembled again, old systems on the moon base woke up. Signals, long, quiet, sparked with life. One signal repeated the same strange phrase, "He lives." The scent of steel and hope returns. Jace narrowed his eyes. The words were Zarvan. No one else would understand them, but he did, because they weren't meant for Earth. They were meant for him. Something inside him stirred, something he had locked away. He stood up, his breath steady, his movements slow but sure. The war wasn't over. The real war was just beginning, and it had followed. His scent across the stars. Jace stood under the frozen dome of the moon base, the dim lights flickering as power flowed back into systems that hadn't been touched in years. He moved with quiet purpose, boots echoing against metal floors as he walked deeper into the old hangar. There, hidden under sheets of dust and ice, was Valor's Reach, an old warship from a forgotten era. Once feared across the galaxy, now just a shadow of its past. He placed his hand on the cold hull, and the ship recognized him. The engines hummed and lights blinked awake like an old animal stretching after long sleep. He sent a silent call. Through private channels, summoning those who still remembered him. Hours later, 4 figures arrived, each different but all loyal. Shira, the best pilot he ever flew with, greeted him with a grin and a punch to the arm. Ramos, gruff and quiet, only nodded and went to check the ship's weapons. Sliza, the medic, with cybernetic eyes, asked if he was finally ready to stop hiding. Kale, his old engineer, simply said, "Took you long enough." Together, they began repairs, fueling engines, patching wires, and checking weapons. The ship groaned but obeyed. As they worked, Jace opened an old storage crate. Pulling out the coat he had worn the day he saved Hearth, an alien girl with silver skin. The scent still clung to its smoke, blood, ash, and something else, something living. He sat in the command chair as the ship's AI lit up, showing scattered readings across the system. Hidden between enemy broadcasts, a faint message, pulsed again and again, carried in the Sarvan language, the one who smells of iron and hope. Lives. His crew didn't understand it. They thought it was a trick, but Jace knew better. He remembered the look in her eyes, how she had clung to him, even as her city died. She had been just a child then, wounded and scared. He had carried her through falling ash, his coat wrapped around her small frame. When he left her with medics, she had whispered something in her own tongue, soft and strange. Now he knew what it meant. "I will remember you." The Zarvan were cold and powerful, their minds linked by scent and memory. They didn't forget smells. They didn't forget people who touched their lives. Jace leaned forward and set. Course for Velian 6, the ruined world where it all began. The crew didn't question him. They trusted him, even if they didn't understand. As Valor's Reach roared to life and lifted off the ice, he watched the stars above, somewhere out. There, she remembered. Somewhere she waited. And something was calling him back, not just to face the enemy, but to face what he had done. Valor's Reach flew fast through the silent dark, its engines burning bright against the cold stars. Jace stood at the ship's window, watching the stars blur as they passed into deep space. His thoughts stayed fixed on Avelian 6, the ruined planet where he had once saved a dying alien child. The crew worked hard, each one focused but tense. They all knew they were heading into enemy space, into the heart of the Zarvan swarm. The mission felt like suicide, but none of them turned back. Shira flew with sharp hands and sharp eyes, slipping through patrol routes and drifting between asteroid fields like she was dancing with death. Ramos kept the guns warm, checking and rechecking the missile systems. Kale whispered to the ship like it was an old friend, begging it not to break apart mid-flight. Lysa patched old wounds in the armor while humming to herself. Jace said little. He kept his mind on the strange signal that had called him the message in the Zarvan voice that spoke of hope and iron. He didn't know if it was truly her, or a trap, but he had to find out. Then, without warning, alarm screamed. A Zarvan battleship came out of warp behind them, huge and black, shaped like a blade with glowing red eyes across its hull. Jace gave the order. No talk, just fight. Valor's Reach flipped sideways and dived through a broken asteroid belt. The enemy ship followed, firing bursts of blue plasma. The whole sky lit up with death, Shira shouted as she pulled a barrel roll, just avoiding a beam that would have melted them. Ramos returned fire, sending a spread of missiles straight into the enemy's face. One hit, a small explosion, not enough. Kale pushed power into the shields, even though the ship shook and groaned under the stress. Lysa ran to brace Jace's chair with a medline in hand, in case they got hit again. Jace focused, eyes calm. He studied the enemy's pattern. The Zarvan ship was big but slow to match Shira. He gave new orders. Circle, rise, loop, drop. Trap, they flew low. Near a frozen moon, letting the enemy close in, pretending they were damaged. Then Jace launched the trick. A cluster of fake heat signals flew from the rear of their ship. The enemy aimed at those. That's when Ramos sent 2 torpedoes into the enemy's lower hull. Both hit. Fire burst out, and the Zarvan ship began to fall, but Jace wasn't celebrating. He saw something strange just before the explosion. The enemy ship hesitated. Their targeting stopped for a second. It was like they recognized something, like they knew who was on board. Ice. He didn't say it out loud, but the truth sat heavy in his mind. That wasn't a normal attack. Zarvan had scanned him, seen something, and pulled back too late. As the wreck of the battleship drifted into blackness, Jace stared at the fading signal. This war wasn't simple. Something inside the swarm had changed. And he had the feeling that someone with silver skin and violet eyes had made them hesitate. Aveliant 6 was a dead world, cracked and burned by war, its skies gray with ash and dust. As Valor's Reach broke through the thick clouds and landed near the ruins of what was once a living city, Jace felt a tightness in his chest. The streets were quiet. The buildings stood half-broken, hollow like bones. Wind blew through the ruins, carrying the dry scent of stone and old smoke. He walked alone, leaving the others behind on the ship. His boots crunched on scorched ground, each step pulling him deeper into memories he had buried. Years ago, he had come here as a soldier. The fighting had been fierce. He had been told to clear the city, burn everything, leave no survivors. But he had disobeyed that order when he found her. A child, small and shaking, half buried under metal beams, blood on her silver skin. She hadn't screamed. She had only stared at him with wide violet eyes, like she didn't understand why he was there. He had picked her up, wrapped her in his coat, and carried her through fire and ash to safety. That moment had never left him. Now, as he stepped into the center of the ruined square, where it had all happened, he stopped. The air felt thick, almost electric. Then he heard a soft sound like a song mixed with a whisper. A shape moved through the mist. It was her, taller now, no longer a child. Her silver hair flowed like water in the wind, and her skin glowed faintly with light from within. She wore a long robe with symbols Jace didn't know, but her eyes were the same, violet, glowing, full of sadness and something more. She stepped closer, carefully, as if not wanting to frighten him. "You came back," she said. Her voice was soft but strong. Jace didn't speak. He couldn't. His heart pounded and his throat was dry. She smiled faintly, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "I remembered you," she said. "Your scent Tyron. Smoke and something warm. I never forgot it." Jace finally found his voice. "You survived," she nodded, "because of you. You gave me your coat. You gave me safety. That means more to my people than you know." She walked closer and reached out slowly, her fingers brushing the sleeve of his jacket. "We are scent-bound creatures. We carry memories not just in our minds, but in our breath, our skin. Your scent was marked into me. It's why I searched, why I waited." Jace looked at her stunned. "You sent the signal?" "Yes," she said. "Not all Zarvan want war. Many remember what peace could be. I became their voice, their queen. But I needed you. They wouldn't follow me until they saw you, smelled you, till they believed the human who saved me was real." Jace stepped back, overwhelmed by what he was hearing. She had become something powerful because of what he did. A single act of kindness, long ago, had changed her. Now she was here, alive, strong, and reaching out again. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Her eyes held his. "I want you to help me stop the war. And I want to remember your touch, not just as a ghost, but as something real. Now." Here the air was still. The dead world around them felt distant, almost forgotten. And as they stood face to face, human and alien, past and present, something unspoken passed between them. Not fear, not duty, but something deep, something alive. ChatGPT said, "Inside the ancient ruins of Avelion 6. Jace listened closely as Cyril spoke with calm fire in her voice, her words full of sorrow and truth. She told him the Zarvan swarm was not one mind, not anymore. Long ago, after their homeworld was burned in another war, their unity shattered. Some Zarvan followed new warlords, full of hate, driven by revenge. One of those was Lord Vikel, the one now leading the attack on Earth. But others, like Cyril and her people, had grown tired of death. They remembered the human who had once saved one of their own, a girl in the fire, and they saw hope in that memory. Cyril had risen in secret, gathering followers, guiding them with kindness and strength. She had never forgotten the warmth of Jace's arms. It's the way he had wrapped her in his coat, the smell of him that meant safety when everything else was burning. It's that memory had kept her alive. She had become queen of her faction, not through fear, but through trust, through the power of a single human memory. But the swarm wouldn't follow her unless they believed that memory was real. That's why she had sent the message. Why she had searched the stars, why she had waited. She looked at Jace now, her hand brushing against his, and said, "Your scent is more than just a mark. It is a sign. A symbol of a moment when our two kinds touched and didn't destroy each other." Jace stood still, trying to make sense of it all. War had always felt like a machine cold, huge, unstoppable. But now, standing before him was the proof that one small moment of mercy could change the path of an entire species. Cyril asked him to return with her, deep into Zarvan territory, to show himself to the swarm, to let his scent and memory awaken what was buried inside them. If the other Zarvan could feel what she felt, remember what she remembered, then maybe they would stop the war. Maybe they would rise against Lord Viakel. Jace felt a storm inside his chest. The risk was massive. If they were wrong, they would be killed before they even reached the swarm's core. But when he looked at Cyril, no longer a child but a powerful queen with eyes full of truth, he nodded. Couldn't walk away now, not when so much rested on what had once been a simple act of kindness. Crew of Valor's Reach agreed without hesitation. Shira grinned and said, "If we're flying into the dragon's mouth, might as well do it in style." Ramos loaded the guns, Kale tuned the engines, and Lysa gave Jace a soft smile before fitting him with a special suit designed by Cyril's people. The suit held the memory of his scent, his warmth, his presence. It would speak to the swarm in a way words never could. As they left Aveliant 6, heading toward the heart of the enemy, Jace stood beside Cyril on the bridge. She didn't look like an enemy now. She looked like someone who believed. And as their ships flew deeper into the dark, toward the heart of a broken empire, Jace felt something strange and powerful. Not fear, not anger, but hope simple and strong, that kind that could light even the coldest stars. Cyril's stealth cruiser glided through the shadows of deep space, silent and unseen, followed by a fleet of her loyalist Sarvan ships, shaped like sleek blades, painted in soft glows of blue instead of war red. Next-eyed, Jace stood still in the Chamber of Winds, a special room filled with faint mists, where the suit he wore began to release his scent slowly, carefully, like a message drifting into the air. The Zarvan didn't speak through words alone. They shared thoughts through smell, emotion through presence. This suit, made with care by Cyril's people, was their only chance to reach the minds of the larger swarm. They were headed straight into the nest world where Lord Vyakal ruled, and where the mind node pulsed, controlling thousands of drones. The plan was clear, but dangerous. Get close enough to the node, let Jace's presence touch its heart, and wake the old memory inside the swarm, the memory of mercy, of a human's touch and fire. But Vyakal was waiting. His warships spotted them as they reached the edge of the nest. The sky came alive with fire. Cyril's ships flew forward without fear, diving between beams of plasma, dodging sharp-edged cruisers. She led them from the front, her command full of strength. Jace watched from the cruiser's war deck, the battle shaking the ship around him. Lights flickered, shields groaned. In that chaos, Cyril turned to him and said softly, "This is your moment." With a nod, Jace boarded a fast dropship with his small strike team Shira, Ramos, and 2 Zarvan guards who had sworn to protect him. They plunged into the heart of the swarm, slipping past fire and metal until they reached the inner chambers of Vykal's stronghold. There they met walls of rage drones flooded the halls, their claws sharp, their movements fast. Ramos fired hard, shouting as he pushed forward. Shira threw down flash bombs, blinding the enemy as they ran. Group moved through narrow tunnels, climbing toward the mine node. But time was short. The swarm was shifting, angry and fast, sensing something strange, something familiar. As they reached the node chamber, Jace stepped forward. The room was alive with light and pulse, thousands of small threads reaching out like roots in the air. At the center was the node, glowing red. He touched it. The world changed. Waves of memory rushed through the chamber. His warmth, his scent, his thoughts all poured into the core. Across the nest, drones paused, their claws lowered, their eyes blinked. They remembered. He saw what Cyril saw, man carrying a child through fire, giving safety, giving hope. But then a roar broke through the moment. Lord Vyakal stepped into the chamber. He was massive, armored, his breath a hiss of hate. "You," he snarled, "you stink of weakness." He attacked. Jace barely dodged. Vyakal struck with claws and fury. Ramos fired, but Vyakal swatted him aside. Shira screamed as she was thrown into the wall. Jace fought with everything he had, but Vyakal was too strong. Then Cyril appeared, leapt through the smoke, her spear glowing with bright blue light. She stood over Jace as he fell, bleeding. "He smells of hope," she said, "and I remember his touch." With a cry, she drove her spear into Vykal's chest. He howled, fell, and was gone. The room fell still. The node turned blue. The swarm obeyed her. The war had changed. The battle was over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than war. Across the Zarvan Nest world, drones stood still like statues, their red lights fading to soft blue as Cyril's will flowed through the mine node. The swarm had stopped. Fighting. Some ships powered down their weapons. Others turned and fled into space, leaderless and afraid. The war that had nearly destroyed Earth was no longer burning, but the cost had been great. Inside the healing chamber, aboard Valor's Reach, Jace lay on a narrow bed, wrapped in bandages and covered in a soft Zarvan light that pulsed gently over his skin. His body was broken, ribs cracked, deep cuts across his back, one leg fractured, but he was alive. The pain was real, but it didn't matter now. Sorel sat beside him, silent, watching his chest rise and fall. Her silver skin was smudged with ash, and a small line of dried blood marked her cheek, but her eyes never lost their glow. She reached out now and touched his hand, her fingers soft against his. "You came for me," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Even when the stars burned." Jace blinked slowly, turning his head to look at her. His voice was dry and rough. "I made a promise. Long ago, I wasn't going to break." She smiled, just a little. "I waited, even when others told me you were gone. I remembered your scent in the wind. I remembered your arms around me when I was small," gave a weak laugh. "That coat was too big for you?" "It kept me warm," she said, "and I never forgot. In my dreams, you were always there, the human who didn't kill me, the one who gave me hope." Around them, the ship floated safely in orbit. Sorel's fleet had taken full control of the swarm. Her message had spread across the stars. The Zarvan warlords who still wanted blood had gone into hiding or surrendered. Some even knelt when they saw Jace, recognizing the scent that had saved their queen. Peace was not complete, not yet, but something had begun. A seed of trust, planted by a single act long ago, had bloomed into something strong. Cyril looked down at Jace and touched his cheek gently. "You saved me again," she said, "not just with weapons, but with what you are." Jace closed his eyes, the warmth of her hand calming the ache in his bones. "I didn't know what I was doing. Back then," he whispered, "I just couldn't leave you." "That was enough," she answered. "Sometimes, one moment is enough to change everything." As the light above dimmed and the ship hummed softly in the silence, Jace let himself rest, not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as the man who had held a child in the fire in years. Later, helped her bring peace to the stars. And Sorel stayed beside him, her fingers still wrapped around his hand. The two of them breathing together in quiet, the war behind them, and a new future waiting.